they genuinely think that guy was a bad guy. And I don't think they're right, and I think they were indoctrinated. And I don't agree with everything that Charlie Kirk said or did.
I don't care if he was a bad guy or not.
He's not a bad guy.
None of that. None of it. But this idea of then, after his death, having to deify a white supremacist and pretend that he was something he wasn't has been absolutely, not only, like, you know, mind-baffling to see, but horrifying. And rather than answer the same question 23 times, I'll just put this out here. Oh, I should preface this with the fact that I have not been offered the gig, but it should go without saying that there's not enough money for me to help these depraved, awful people put a fun face on their crimes against humanity. But here goes. What do you think I think? I am disgusted and deeply disappointed in the whole gross thing. That people I admire, with inarguable talent, would condone this totalitarian fiefdom for, what, a fourth house? A boat? More sneakers? We can never again take seriously anything these comedians complain about, unless it's complaining about that we don't support enough torture and mass executions of journalists and LGBTQ plus peace activists here in the United States, or that we don't terrorize enough Americans by flying planes into our buildings. I mean, that's it. You have a funny bit. How about you don't like Yankee candles on our airport lounges? Okay, great, but you're cool with murder and or public caning of women who were raped, and by having the audacity to be raped, we're guilty of engaging in adultery. Got any bits on that? These are some of my heroes. Now look, some of you folks don't stand for anything, so you don't have any credibility to lose, but my God, Dave and Louis, are you talking about CK Louis? Oh God, what the hell? And Jim, clearly you guys don't give a shit about what the rest of us think, but how can any of us take you seriously ever again? All of you bitching about cancel culture, freedom of speech, and all that shit, done. You don't get to talk about it ever again. By now, we've all seen the contract you had to sign. You're performing for literally the most oppressive regime on earth. They have slaves, for fuck's sake. I don't understand how being rich can make someone be such a whore. Poor people desperate to improve their lives or their families' lives, sure. Still not acceptable, but I understand the desperation to put food on the table. But this, I mean, it's not like this is some commercial for a wireless service or a betting app. This is truly the definition of blood money. You might as well do commercials for Lockheed Martin or Zyklon B. Holy shit, I remember the backlash I got for appearing in Alvin and the Chipmunks. You would have thought that I'd taken money from a bunch of people responsible for funding Al-Qaeda. Unless you open your sets with, this is dedicated to all the widows and widowers of the kids orphaned by the bloodthirsty oppressive regime, especially the zany shenanigans on 9/11. Never forget, motherfuckers. All right, so great to be here. I'm going to be killing it tonight, but in the good way. Straight up, no MBS. Then your hypocrisy will never be noted. David, P.S. for anyone who actually spends their money on something worthwhile, the Human Rights Foundation does amazing work. Here's how you donate, etc. Louis C.K. has an S, not an E. Oh, okay. All right. But there isn't anyone else named Louis in the lineup. Uh-oh. Oh, now we're back to what? Hey, I just want to put this out there because I did say this on the Leftist Mafia and I stand by it. The United States is not a good country. And I'm sorry, Americans, you have to hear that. But don't worry. Guess what? Neither is Canada. We're terrible, racist, colonial, genocidal, all that terrible stuff. Also super anti-LGBTQ plus, that kind of stuff. I just want to say, though, because the point has been brought up. So wait, if you are going to boycott a place like Saudi Arabia, are you not going to boycott your own country? There's a difference between if you performed at a random venue in the United States or if Donald Trump hosted the Trump Comedy Festival in which you had to praise and or celebrate Trump, his regime, America, and he did it in the brand new Trump ballroom. Yeah, I would agree. That's fucked up. You're taking fucked up cash. Unless you're going there to speak truth to power, which no one would be, then doing that entire thing would be an absolute spectacle, which you should be condemned for. And I would also argue people would condemn you for it. A lot of people would condemn you for it. I think a lot of people would come forward and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Unless, again, like I have no problem because, hey, guess what? I get paid out every single time you sub to my stream or you donate money. A small percentage of that money is going towards a terrible company that does terrible things. It's going to be Alphabet. It's going to be Amazon. And so if at the end of the day, I've said this before, if Peter Thiel just knocked on my door or sent me an email or however he wants to communicate me, I'm available. Peter, by the way, this is an offer. This is not me doing a bit. And said, I'll give you $10,000. And I don't have to do anything in exchange. I don't have to pretend to love Peter Thiel. I don't have to do a Peter Thiel special. I don't have to like, hey, by the way, everybody, I am now just going to say I've said some pretty mean things about Peter Thiel, but that guy is actually doing some important stuff in the world. And we should actually take a second to respect that man. if I don't have to do any of that, if I can say whatever the fuck I want, if I can be like, Peter Thiel is a fucking monster who's trying to destroy society because he has no media literacy, because he is illiterate, the rest of us have to suffer, because he didn't understand the plot of fucking Dune, all of us now have to live in this dystopian nightmare. If I'm allowed to do that, but he's also willing to give me 10 grand, of course I'm going to take the 10 grand. Are you fucking serious? Yes, I could use that 10 grand. I could use it for a lot of great stuff, okay? I can create extra channels, I can pay more editors, I can expand the amount of work that I do. So I would absolutely take his garbage cash if I was allowed to do whatever I wanted. There's a big difference, though, between that and you're not allowed to say anything bad about Peter Thiel. You have to promote Peter Thiel. You have to promote Peter Thiel's companies, and you have to promote Peter Thiel's agenda. That's part of why you would accept that cash. Well, then no. I'm not going to do that, obviously, because that would be selling out. That's the difference, right? So to everyone who's performing at this festival, I know some people were like, right, but like, what's wrong with this? If you normalize, because this is not a festival, right, for the people who have been oppressed by that regime and in turn oppressed by the alliance that the United States has with Saudi Arabia, or any of the countries that have to suffer, like the genocide in Yemen at the hands of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia does a lot of fucked up stuff to a lot of other nations, and its partnership with the United States allows it to continue to do that. So if you go there and you pretend that actually it's not a fiefdom, it's not a monarchy, it's not anywhere near as bad as you think, it's actually pretty awesome. And to be honest with you, we were allowed to go there. We were allowed to do our bits. We were allowed to tell our jokes, and everything was awesome. It may have been done to a very select amount of people who are allowed to actually attend one of those events because they are in the very high economic class of that country. That might be true. But at the same time, hey, what's a couple $1 million, right? And so that's why I know I got a lot of people in my comments on TikTok, of all places, really upset, being like, oh, what? So the United States is supposed to be a good country, but you're just willing to shit all over Saudi Arabia? No, it's not that. It's the conditions by which this festival is being thrown. This is a state-sponsored event, all right? This event is being used to normalize the behavior of, yes, a bad regime. It's a monarchy. I'm sorry, I'm not pro-monarchy. It doesn't matter where it takes place, whether it's the King of England or the Prince of Saudi Arabia, it doesn't really matter to me. So to do that and then do that as part of this entire thing is being done so that all the world's biggest truth tellers, some of the A-list stand-up comedians around the world, Dave Chappelle's there, Chris Tucker's there, fucking, this entire collection, and yes, Bill Burr is also there. Well then, yeah, it's a situation in which I'm obviously going to be like, that's kind of fucked up. Just fucked up. At the very least, fucked up, okay?
Seeking to rebrand its image through high-profile entertainment projects, part of its Vision 2030 modernization push, but critics argue these events are state-sponsored sports washing or culture washing. Woods brought up the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018, where Saudi operatives killed and dismembered the reporter inside a consulate. This brutal act, widely attributed to the Saudi regime, remains a defining symbol for those who view the comedy festival as blood money. Even as Saudi Arabia has expanded certain freedoms, such as recently allowing women to drive, the regime remains notorious for human rights abuses and restrictions on expression. The festival's deal memos, which reportedly forbid comics from making certain jokes, struck the podcast panel as a direct contradiction to the free speech ethos that many comics claim to champion. Godfrey himself approached the conversation with curiosity and skepticism, pressing for clarity and even asking for proof of accusations against Bill Burr, who became the focal point of the panel's frustration.
What about Bill?
There was this compilation. I wish I would have saved it, but I saw the video, but I didn't save it.
Well, what? Man, the bag. Get
It was.
the bag.
He was on a.
Fuck
He was
outta
on a podcast talking shit about people who going over there performing for billionaires and blah blah blah. And then he just did exactly what he said.
But my thing is,
It's just a hypocrite.
It was mad at Beyonce when Beyonce went over there and did something. Not Saudi,
but
but she went
Saudis
somewhere.
have stuff in America that you don't even realize is there.
Nigga, wrestling goes to Saudi.
Yeah. It's like, what are you talking? I've been to Saudi.
Son,
I've done
you
Saudi.
have-
I've done Kuwait. I've done Dubai. I've done Lebanon.
Usually I'm
Burr, Woods argued, had long criticized comics who performed for billionaires or under questionable circumstances, but was now doing exactly what he once mocked by accepting the Saudi paycheck.
All right, so now the next day, okay? So that was the friendly. Now we're going to Saudi Arabia. And Josh is going like, dude, I feel good now. I feel good. And I'm going, dude, I don't know, man. I'm fucking nervous about this one. This is like, we're in the shit here. Like, they have never had a comedy festival. And, I don't know what's going to happen here. And, like, my whole fucking idea of Saudi Arabia is what I've seen, like, on the news. I literally think I'm going to fucking land, you know, and everybody's going to be screaming, death to America. And they're going to have like fucking machetes and want to like chop my head off, right? Because this is what I've been.
I love that a spin on the whole thing was like, so I thought it was just going to be a backwards populace of terrible people who wanted to behead me the second I landed on the ground, but it turned out they were kind of nice. Everyone was really nice to me. All my handlers were nice to me. They fed me all this beautiful food. I got to stay in this beautiful place.
And fed. And we're driving around, and then I'm just like going like, I thought this place was going to be like really tense. And I'm thinking like, is that a Starbucks next to a Pete's Coffee?
Oh, it was Americanized, and then you felt safe. That's nice. That's good, you know? I know when I travel somewhere and I'm a little bit worried, I just look out for the McDonald's, and as soon as you see a McDonald's, I go, oh, thank God. I mean, I had no idea what those other things were. Jolly Bees? I couldn't even understand it. It was in a different language for me. But then I saw McDonald's. Oh, thank God. Then I knew they'd have actual human food.
Next to a Burger King, next to a McDonald's, next to a Pizza Hut, next to a Dunkin' Donuts, next to a Krispy Kreme, next to a Cheesecake Factory, next to a KFC, next to a Chili's. They got a fucking Chili's over here. Then we go into the mall because I want to get my kids something. There was a Timberland store. I could have bought Timberlands like I was in Brooklyn, New York. Okay, they want a fucking show. You could feel it. I was talking to the other comics. You could feel it. They wanted you to push, right? It was really fucking exciting. So I go up on stage and I start doing my shit, and they're fucking into it. Everything's going good. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm checking out the diplomats as I'm doing this stuff, and they're all fucking laughing. All right, so I'm going to push a little farther. And all of a sudden, I start getting in the zone. Well, Billy's feeling loose up there. And my brain just goes, gay Jim. And then the other part of my brain goes, don't do that. And then I said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. So I started doing the joke, and it fucking murdered. It murdered. They all loved it. And at that...
But I'm lost. Like, how is that calling out, like, the regime? When people were questioning this and they were like, well, the one person I'm actually kind of excited to hear from is Bill Burr. Because, you know, Bill Burr has actually been calling, you know, out the rich and powerful for some time. He's been going on a lot of really good rants about billionaires and how much they fuck up the world. And now he's going to, you know, a regime that is effectively run by a monarchy, led by, yes, billionaires, and who are effectively using their money to try and make their own, let's just say, abysmal human rights record seem less aggressive in the eyes of the world by having a comedy festival and being like, yeah, we're not as horrifying on free speech as you might imagine, because we have some of the world's foremost truth tellers coming here, and if we can allow them to do their comedy sets, surely you must understand that we don't care if people make fun of us. But were you allowed to make fun of Mohammed bin Salman? Like, were you allowed to do that? Were you allowed to make fun of religion? Were you allowed to make fun of fundamentalism? Were you allowed to do that? Were you allowed to do any jokes in relation to either of those topics? Because according to everything I've read so far, you weren't. That's where you were absolutely not allowed to make fun of it. But I mean, if you're going to make fun of gay people, I don't understand how that in any way is breaking through. Like, it's like, well, I mean, I was worried I was going to do my bit on the gay Jim, but then I did it, and then everyone loved it. So there you have it.
Point, I was just like, fuck it, I'm just doing my act. So I did my act, did the whole thing. And I had to stop a couple times during the show. I was like going like, I'll be honest with you guys, I cannot fucking believe any of you have any idea who I am. This is really amazing. And it was just this great exchange.
And again, to people who are like, yeah, but like, isn't this once again just a form of, like, you know, your own Western mindset where you're trying to criticize another country for their limits on speech? And I was like, if you went back to America and you do a full non-state sponsored, but a full set right now, would comedians feel safe doing one mocking Charlie Kirk? Would you feel safe right now in the current administration and the current political climate that is going on, where you just do an hour-long set making fun of Charlie Kirk? Would you do that? Would comedians do that? Would you make fun of the Trump administration and then tie that part into it? I think most people would say no. I think they'd be like, I that part is kind of scary right now. Just with everything that is going on, I don't know if it's safe. I don't know if it's okay for me to do that. All right, and I understand. Like, hey, I understand completely not wanting to do something that might directly put your career at risk, or not wanting to do something that could get you such significant backlash that might actually have you have sponsors leave, or have opportunities gone, or have things pulled away from you. Suddenly you've lost some pilot that you've been working on, or some show, or some network is like, we're not willing to work with anyone who's going to be making fun of Charlie Kirk. Sure, but don't in the same breath then say you are this brave truth teller who's willing to just smash taboos because you have to. And what are those taboos that you're smashing? Well, I did my bit on gay people, and my bit on gay people working out in gyms, the gay gyms. Then that one I'm gonna do because, well, yeah, I mean, that's not speaking truth to power. There's no danger from you making fun of gays, where the gay community is effectively going to be able to destroy your career with all of the material power that gay people have in the U.S., right? Let alone in Saudi Arabia. That I've been talking to are saying, dude, you can feel the audience wanted it. They want to see real stand-up comedy. It was a mind-blowing experience, definitely the top 3 experiences I've ever had. I think it's going to lead to a lot of positive things. Burr said the restrictions on what comedians could say had been softened by the festival after some back and forth. He didn't specify with or with whom. When they first set it up, the rules and what they had about what you couldn't say in Saudi Arabia, if you want some good comedians, this isn't going to work. And to their credit, they said, all right, what do we got to do? And then we negotiated all the way down to a couple things that I think were basically, you can't make fun of the royals and religion. It's exactly what I said. So you can't criticize the administration that is trying to utilize and take advantage of all of you to be able to do PR for their regime and religion. Exactly. Right. And honestly, it's so you can get quotes like this in big Hollywood Reporter magazines, where it's just basically like, a lot of people thought that like we wouldn't be able to do a comedy set and you couldn't talk about anything. But it turns out, like, we told them, if you want to have the world's foremost truth tellers available for you, then you got to let us do our craft. And then they said yes, and then we could do whatever we wanted. And then I busted a taboo. I was able to do my bit on gay gyms, and they allowed me to do that. They allowed me to make fun of gay people, and they laughed so much at it. It was so funny, and I can't believe it. I was given the freedom to do that. I never thought in a million years that I would be allowed to make fun of gay people in Saudi Arabia, but it happened. It was a beautiful moment for everybody to witness, and it's like, that's not doing anything that challenges their regime. That's not actually bursting taboos. That's not being the George Carlin of your age. That's not something that I think would have even been in the initial list of restrictions. Do you think in the list of things you can't talk about, one of them would be making jokes about gay people? I'm pretty sure that would have been allowed. Again, like, I'm sorry, it's just too much bravery. I can't take all this bravery.
I don't see anybody die.
First of all, he's fucking your age, right?
Yeah. 30.
Oh man, the brave takes. They just won't stop coming. Look, it doesn't matter at all what he said or what he believed or what he actively worked for or anything he put out into this world. The sum total of everything that he did while he was alive doesn't matter to me. All that matters to me is that you should not die in that way. And no one was on the other side of that, right? Like no politician, not a single one, not even the leftist pundits, not even the Chapo, the dirtbag left guys were being like, I think that this is based on our branding and that this validates what we have said for a long time, that we should be silencing our political enemies through extreme violence and shooting them in the face, and that's what we've always advocated for, and finally our prophecy has been fulfilled. There's none of that, none of it. But this idea of then, after his death, having to deify a white supremacist and pretend that he was something he wasn't has been absolutely not only mind-baffling to see, but horrifying. It's been genuinely horrifying. Again, if we're getting down to the core of the truth tellers and comedians, right, of which Joe Rogan considers himself one of them, and this ability to make jokes about anything, that's what they always talk about. You should be able to have the freedom as a comedian to make jokes about anything. Joke about any topic. Doesn't matter. That's what a comedian is here to do. Okay, can I tell my bit or my set or do an entire thing about the killing of Charlie Kirk? No. What's wrong with you? See, this this changed the way I thought about the world. I'm just shocked that there would have been anyone who would make a joke about that. How could you? He would never do that. He would never make a joke about someone getting killed or attempted murder. But what about when someone broke into Nancy Pelosi's house and tried to murder her husband with a hammer, like tried to bash his skull in? It gave him like severe brain trauma as a result of smashing him in the head with a hammer. Charlie Kirk made fun of that. A lot of right-wingers made fun of that. Like Donald Trump Jr. posted a picture of underwear and a hammer, and he's like, I got my Halloween costume for the year. What, so the Nancy Pelosi's husband's assassin Halloween costume? Like, this double standard never applied, ever. Except in this one case, all of a sudden, because everyone on the right has decided he's our guy. Like Charlie Kirk, this podcaster, is now one of the most important figures in American history. Glenn Beck was saying that he should be honored as one of the greatest leaders of civil rights in the history of the United States. And he was a white supremacist who hated the civil rights movement. Like, isn't that wild? I think this entire thing, honestly, is having a backlash and a net negative effect that they never expected. Because, like, the rest of the world, you know, is kind of aghast at the idea of venerating someone that extreme. And then this is not the sum total of even conservatism. Like, even like when you say, hey, by the way, there's a lot of different kinds of right wingers. There is. I agree with you. It just really sucks if they all start getting pulled into this orbit of just like far right fascism. But for like what, the rhinos, for the people who are like, I am a conservative and that I believe in having low taxes and small government. That's what I believe. Okay, so then you must be aghast at a person like Donald Trump and MAGA, because this is a massive government that is just funneling money all the way to the billionaire class while simultaneously enacting nonstop violence, including military violence, on their own citizens. You could not imagine a bigger government that, again, is just wasting so much cash so that billionaires can get infinitely richer. That should be the opposite of what you talk about when you care about this kind of stuff. And for a comedian like Joe Rogan, the idea of being like, it just changed me. I couldn't believe that people would make jokes about a man's death. What about George Floyd? What about George Floyd deaths? Has there been any right-wingers who have made jokes about that? Because, see, unlike Charlie Kirk, George Floyd was not a multi-millionaire. He was not an extremely wealthy man. He was selling cigarettes on the street. Like, the guy has been the punchline of right-wing fucking endless harassment and disgusting-ass jokes for years now. Years. Every single day I see nonstop like memes, AI videos, fucking like what they consider to be comedy and jokes about a man who was fucking asphyxiated to death by a police officer. Something that, again, should be seen as horrifying and horrible. Like, that's really fucked up, right? Like, if you want to talk about a horrifying way to die in which violence was enacted, political violence was enacted upon someone. What about someone putting their fucking knee on your neck until you can't breathe anymore and you die while you're screaming for your own mother? And that is on camera, so the eyes of the world can see it and see how fucking horrifying that is. That sounds like political violence. That sounds like something that no one in their right mind should consider that this is acceptable to mock. But still, at the end of the day, if the brave, truth-telling comedians want to do their bits and their sets on, well, I mean, the guy was really into fentanyl, you know? I mean, how long does it take to die when you're high? I mean, that's what we should... Ain't no one on the other side being like, okay, that person should be arrested. Okay, that person should be fired from their job instantaneously. But if you have the audacity to make fun of Charlie Kirk, again, if you say anything, if you bring up Charlie Kirk and you say anything other than... He was a civil rights activist. He was a civil rights leader. He cared about conversation. He didn't want to stifle debate. He wanted everyone to have a platform to say whatever they wanted to because he believed that by having conversations, we can heal as a nation. If you say anything outside of that right now, apparently you are going to be silenced. You are going to have your free speech taken away from you.
The young guy, right? And he would go around to college campuses and have arguments with people or have discussions with people, have debates with people. Yep. But it infuriated people because they felt like this guy is going against the progress that was being made in society. But what he did not feel like was progress. Like, it was a progressive agenda that was being pushed in most college campuses. It's a leftist, Marxist sort of agenda. He didn't.
Which, by the way, I thought everyone would be over that once we actually saw what happened to every single student that decided that they were going to take a stance against genocide. In these so-called Marxist indoctrination communist centers that were supposed to be these universities and college campuses, what happens to students if they're like, hey, by the way, genocide's bad, actually? Not something I would consider to be a controversial or spicy take at all. And if they're like, hey, by the way, there's a genocidal regime that the university is currently invested in, and we're demanding actually as students, if we're going to be paying tuition, if we're going to be a part of this organization, that you should actually have to divest from genocide. That's why we're protesting. And in these, again, super Marxist, left-wing, fucking anti-capitalist, commie headquarters, the birthplace of Antifa, what happened to all those students? What happened to every single student who eventually decided that they weren't simply going to take no for an answer? They weren't simply going to take down their tents or take down their signs or their protests. What actually took place? And you'd think after all of that, after the police rush in, after the university side again with the argument that this is anti-Semitism and that all the students were engaged in some kind of radical racist movement, and the cops got to go in there and crack skulls and arrest kids and really just allow state violence to take place. Political violence. Again, political violence at a very, very large scale. This myth is still being propagated, that these places are actual institutions of left-wing indoctrination.
I feel like that was the correct way to live, and he felt like he had arguments against it, and he wanted, and it was, it's a business too, right? Like he developed this big social media platform because of it, and I don't, like I said, I don't agree. I don't think some of the things he said he should have said, but the fact that people were cheering when he died, normal people, housewives, moms, like fucking people working at banks, people working at various industries, celebrating a man getting shot in front of his kids, in front of the whole world.
That's
like,
evil.
What the fuck is wrong with us?
And it's just really weird now.
It's really weird, and it's celebrated to hate people. And
that's what he did for a living, Joe. That's why, like, are you shocked? I wasn't at all. If you spend an entire career espousing hate, dehumanizing different groups, dehumanizing indigenous people, dehumanizing black people, dehumanizing trans people, dehumanizing gay people, dehumanizing women just on a regular basis, you better be subservient to your husband, you better obey him, you better do exactly as he commands, it's in the Bible, all that kind of shit, right? If you spend your entire career just putting hate out into the world, what a surprise that the groups that you've been trying to dehumanize, make lesser than, are not going to, feel any empathy towards your death or feel any sympathy. Some of them might even celebrate it. Some of them might even be like, oh, that person who's constantly telling us that we are subhuman, have low IQs, or that we are mentally incapable of achieving success, that if we are in positions that we worked our entire lives to get into, that we must have done it because we were taking that opportunity away from a white person who is more rightfully qualified, that, DEI is the only reason why black people have high positions in any capacity, anywhere, but they don't actually have the mental capacity or brain processing power to do those jobs, so they've been taking them away, and it's only because of DEI. The same thing applies to pilots. Like, all of that, if you do that every single day, what's going to happen once you die? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, oh, okay, well, that person who was saying fucking terrible stuff about us all day is no longer around to say terrible stuff about us.
That's the weird part, and most of us know that that's wrong. And that's why, like, when this Charlie Kirk thing happens, there's a giant blowback, and most people recognize, like, hey, as a collectively, as a society, this is not right. Regardless of whoever that person is, whether that person's on the left or the right, they just got shot in front of the whole world. It's not a thing to celebrate ever. And especially when you're seeing people on the left that are supposed to be progressives. These are supposed to be the kind, compassionate, inclusive people that are celebrating gun violence, public execution. Like, that's insane. That's a public assassination. That's insane.
We're getting them as
it's all the people up there. Yeah, this mythos. I mean, if you're someone who just consumes nonstop right-wing circles of social media or just media in general, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there and every day it's like you tune in to Steven Crowder, you tune into Tim Pool, you tune into any one of these shows, and the people are just sitting there being like, once again, the radical left have been celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. Here is a random Twitter account with 327 followers, and look at the horrifying things that they're saying. This person, look, they have the Palestine flag in their account, they identify as a leftist. This is, broadly speaking, the totality of the left. Oh, sorry, we got a second one. We have another account here. This person has 123 followers, and look at the things that they're posting about Charlie Kirk's death. Every single leftist is celebrating this. Every single leftist is mocking him. And even if every major, massive account was, what, suddenly you want to silence their speech? Suddenly comedy isn't legal? If they're making jokes about it, you could say they're in bad taste. Like, you have the freedom to say that. You would have the freedom to be like, yeah, that's disgusting. I can't believe they'd make a joke like that. That joke is so inappropriate. I can't believe I went on the subreddit r/music the day of his death. That was completely inappropriate, horrifying even. But then what? They can't do it in the opposite direction? They can't make those jokes? The whole thing is so backwards. Again, it keeps pulling me to this idea where you hear all these so-called truth tellers talk about how, like, we as comedians are the ones who push boundaries. We as comedians are the ones who will make people laugh. There is examples of that. There are examples when comedy or comedians, they actually do things that are dangerous, and in spite of that, it's still, like, you know, something that is brave. This is a little bit of an example from a Palestinian film that, in my opinion, you know, does just that.
It is a form of resistance to actually laugh, especially when you laugh in face of oppression and authority.
I first saw The Time That Remains when I was in film school back in 2009, and I remember being genuinely confused by what it was trying to do. On the one hand, it's a personal and tragic story about a Palestinian family living under Israeli rule. But instead of a realistic historical drama, we get a Wes Anderson-style comedy. The story itself is autobiographical and historically true, but the style makes it feel fictional, almost fantastical. And there's a reason why director Elias Suleiman chose this style.
In ghettos, when we reach that despair, we turn this despair into humor for the sake of resisting finality.
Oppression results in despair and a loss of hope, and one way out of this despair is to transform these circumstances into humor. Tragedy becomes comedy. And this act, ironically, resists the very oppression that's causing the despair. It reclaims a sense of power and dignity. Instead of pitying these characters, we relate with them. For better or worse, a narrative structure that categorizes one side as a helpless victim and the other as an evil oppressor results in pity for the victims and hatred for the oppressors. Speak. He's a silent observer, a present absentee. He arrives from out of town, now middle-aged. His father has presumably passed away, as we had predicted, and in his place are two very lovely housekeepers who care for his diabetic mother. Instead of
I know I haven't said anything because, like, this documentary is really good and powerful, and I think just stopping it to talk obviously ruins the flow. I can't help but think that, like, I appreciate that because I wish more directors would do that. Like, any single time M. Night Shyamalan puts himself into a movie, I'm like, oh my god, it totally takes you out of the film because he's not a good actor, and then he's just like, but he has to be in the movie, you know, and he has to have a role, and sometimes he gives himself like the lead, and you're like, what are you doing? You can just hire anyone else and then get back to making your scary movie. You don't need to be in the movie. All right, but so in this case, it actually works really well.
Another land day.
So thank you so much to our patrons for making this show possible. We could not fund it without you, and if you want to join, please check out patreon.com/theserfs to unlock bonus episodes, uncensored content, and all the good stuff. Thanks to Anna Loves Riley, Addercap, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hegbard Salim, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet One 85, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Tigwick, and Words Greenwood.